Have you guys ever stopped and thought about where rain, snow, and hail come from? Well, all week we have been kind of talking about the weather and how these types of weather form, but I have not yet mentioned to you guys that it forms because of something called the water cycle. So who here has heard about the water cycle? Say yes if you have.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm glad that you guys have heard of it. That's great. Today we're going to learn all about the water cycle and then do some fun activities that go along with it. So the first thing you guys need to know about the water cycle is the fact that the sun plays a huge role in it. When the sun shines, the heat warms up the water and turns it into an invisible gas called water vapor. This process, the changing of water into a gas, is known as evaporation, and that is the first step of the water cycle. So because gas is actually lighter than liquid, water vapor rises up into the sky and they further move up into the way of the Earth's surface due to the temperature of gas. So in the sky, the water vapor cools and changes back into tiny water droplets, which is the second step of the water cycle. This step of the water cycle, when water vapor turns into water droplets, is called condensation. Okay. Clouds are actually made up of tiny water droplets. So when condensation occurs in the sky, clouds are formed and they grow. To kind of put it in perspective, the tiny water droplets bang together to create bigger and bigger water droplets until the water droplets get too heavy and they fall. So then when the water droplets get too heavy and they fall, that's the third step of the water cycle, which is precipitation. The raindrops fall to the Earth's surface back into our bodies of water, which is our fourth step in the water cycle, which is known as collection. So then the sun shines on it again, and the entire process happens all over, which is why it's called the water cycle, because it's just one big never-ending cycle. The water cycle keeps the water moving from the ground to the sky and fulfills the water needs of plants, animals, and even us humans so that we can all survive. So now that you guys know and get the gist of how raindrops and snow and all the different types of weather are formed and what the water cycle is all about, we're going to go ahead and summarize everything that we just learned. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started and kind of review. So what's the first step of the water cycle? Who can raise their hand and tell me what the first step of the water cycle is? Yes, Mary?
Evaporation.
Okay, yeah, and what is evaporation? Do you remember?
Changing water into a gas.
Yes, good job.
Okay.
Okay, so the first step of the water cycle is evaporation, and what is the second step of the water cycle? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Yes,
it's condensation.
Okay, and what is condensation?
It's the changing of water vapor into water droplets.
Yeah, good job. Okay, so the first step is evaporation, and the second step of the water cycle is condensation. So what is the third step of the water cycle? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Yes, Ben.
Precipitation.
Okay, and what is precipitation?
It's when water falls from the sky.
Good job. Okay, so the first step of the water cycle is evaporation. The second step is condensation. The third step is precipitation. And what is our fourth and final step? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Yes, Joel.
It's collection.
Okay, and what is collection? Do you remember?
Collection is when bodies of water collects the precipitation that falls from the sky and collect it so the cycle can start over or continue.
Yeah, good job. Okay. So now that we learned about the water cycle, we're going to actually stop talking about the water cycle for a second, and we are going to talk about multiple intelligences. Multiple intelligences are also known as learning styles. So who here knows what learning styles are? Anyone? No? Okay, that's okay. Learning styles would be the preferred method of learning and processing information that students have. So as a teacher, it's important for me to know my students' strengths and know the best way to help each of the students process and absorb information so that each one of you can have the best chance at succeeding academically. So with that being said, there are 8 different types of learning styles. There's kinesthetic learning, interpersonal learning, linguistic learning, logical/mathematical learning, musical learning, visual learning, and naturalistic learning. So I'm going to quickly go over each of these learning styles and just kind of describe them to you. So kinesthetic learning is a learning style where the learning takes place by the students carrying out physical activities rather than just listening to a lecture or watching demonstrations. Interpersonal, these types of students learn best by working alone and setting individual goals. Interpersonal learners are not necessarily shy, they just are independent and organized. Interpersonal, these types of students learn best through communication with others, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. Social learners love being around people, working in groups, teams, and overall thrive through social interactions. The fourth one is linguistic or verbal learners. So verbal learners, linguistic learners, they favor using words and linguistic skills in speech and in writing, such as reading, writing, listening, or speaking. They like word games, puns, and rhymes, and are often strong public speakers. Then you have number 5, which is logical learners. They succeed by using order, step, and logic. These learners can make connections and recognize patterns with ease and work well with numbers. They have a very systematic approach to learning and are excellent at being organized. Number 6 is you have musical learners. These learners express themselves easily in rhythm and melody. They see patterns in music in all aspects of life. And then you have number 7, which is a visual learner. And if you're a visual learner, you learn by reading or seeing pictures. You understand and remember things by sight. You can picture what you are learning in your head, and you learn best by using methods that are primarily visual. You also like to see what you are learning. And then if you're number 8, if you're a naturalistic learner, these learners sense patterns and make connections to elements of nature. They have a strong affinity for animals, the earth, and the environment. Okay. Now that you guys know a little bit about the different learning styles, we're going to take what we know about the water cycle and do some activities. However, rather than all of us doing the same activity like we usually do, you guys will have the choice between 8 different activities or assignments, and then I'm going to read them off to you guys. And while I do that, I want you to listen and think about which assignment or activity sounds the most fun and interesting to you. And once you know which assignment you want to do, I'll have you guys write your name and the assignment down on a piece of paper and bring it to me. Or show me. Okay, so I came up with 8 different assignments, and each one of them has to do with the learning styles that I just talked about. So I'm going to go ahead and just tell you a little bit about each assignment and like what will be expected of you. And then, like I said, you guys will have to decide which assignment you want to do, and make sure that you choose one that you actually want to do. Like, don't just choose one because it seems easy or because your friend's doing it. Choose one that you actually want to do. So the first assignment that you guys have the choice of doing is making a miniature model of the water cycle in a plastic bag, and then you'll answer questions about the water cycle. I have a worksheet that goes along with that where you will answer the questions on. The second one is the students will watch a Magic School Bus episode about the water cycle, and then they'll write about the show and explain what they would have done if they were in Miss Frizz's class and were stuck in the water cycle. The third assignment that you guys had to choose from is to work with a group of students and use props related to the water cycle to reenact each stage of the water cycle. And then we have the fourth assignment, which students are given a variety of audiobooks that they have to do with the water cycle. Students will come to the listening center and listen to the audiobooks, and then use the stories they listen to inspire your guys' selves to write your own story or poem about the water cycle. And then the fifth assignment is a simple experiment showing how evaporation rates are different based on the amount of light a cup of water receives. So students, you guys will keep track of how much light each cup of water gets and record the information. And then the sixth assignment is you guys can choose between creating a song about the water cycle and coming up with dance moves to go along with that song. So the dance moves should help the students remember each stage of the water cycle, and other students will be invited to learn about the water cycle through the song and dance moves. And then the 7th assignment is creating a drawing on a piece of poster board that represents the water cycle. And you just want to make sure that you add detail and label the different parts. And those posters will go out in the hallway and up in our classroom so you guys can remember the water cycle throughout the school year. And then the last assignment, the 8th one, is students will create a rain gauge. Once the students have made the rain gauge, they have to take it home and set it outside and wait for it to rain. And the students will keep a journal that monitors the rainfall. Okay. So now that you guys heard each activity that I have that you guys can choose from, I'm going to call on you and I want you guys to tell me which assignment you're going to do. So first I'll have Mary. Which assignment do you think you want to do? And I'll write it down.
I want to do the miniature model of the water cycle.
Okay. I wrote that down. And Joel, which one do you think you want to do?
I want to do the rain gauge, number 8, I believe.
Okay, rain gauge assignment. Okay. Ben, which assignment would you like to do?
I want to do the evaporation light in the cup project.
Okay, I'll write that down. And Hannah, which assignment would you like to do?
I want to watch the Magic School Bus.
Okay. Hunter, which assignment would you like to do?
I would like to do the drawing of the water cycle.
Okay, so now that I have everyone's selection, I'm going to go ahead and tell you which assignment you'll be doing and giving you the materials you need to complete the assignments. So with that being said, each of you will be doing the activity that you said you wanted. So make sure that you keep in mind which activity you said you wanted to do, because whenever I come around, I'm going to ask you again, and then I'll give you the materials that you need for that assignment and kind of explain it a little more in depth for you guys, and you guys can go ahead and get started on doing your assignments. Okay, now that you guys had some time to work on your assignments and everyone is done with their assignments, I want to say that you guys did a great job with those assignments, and I thought you guys I can tell that you guys really know about the water cycle and have a good understanding of it. So another thing that we're going to do that's kind of goes along with the multiple intelligences, the learning styles that I was talking about, is I'm going to have you guys take a survey. So the survey is just it's like 50 questions, but they're super easy questions, and they have smiley faces that kind of say like how you feel about each of the questions, like a sad face, a medium face, and then like a happy face. And however you feel about each question is the smiley face that you'll circle, I guess, the emotion, this facial expression that you'll circle. So if it's a question that asks you if you enjoy working in groups, but you don't enjoy working in groups, then you will circle the sad face. But if you do like working in groups, then you would circle the happy face. And if you're like, oh, I don't really mind working in groups, then you would circle the medium face. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have you guys take the survey, and then when you're done, you're going to give it to me so that I can look at it. And the survey basically just tells me like what your learning style is. It kind of tells me how you like to learn as a student. So I'm going to go ahead and pass out and have you guys do it, and then we'll be done for the day.